Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Muaddi bin Muhammad Zaini. My matric number is 2317149, and in today's video, I'll be talking about a topic what we call as the corruption of knowledge. So in my part, I'll be explaining about three things. So the first part is I will define what is actually the corruption of knowledge. Then I will identify how it appears into the society. Then I will support my discussion using a real life example. So in Islam, the knowledge isn't just information. It is actually a sacred trust that shapes our character, our behavior, and our society. But today, the way we treat our knowledge has changed. For example, our education system now focus more on skills, grades, and achievement rather than the moral and spiritual side is ignored. Because of this imbalance, knowledge is easily misused. For example, for political agenda, for personal interest, and so on. And scholars like Al-Attas has mentioned and explained about this in his book where he says that when knowledge loses its ethical foundation, it no longer guides us properly. And that's what we call as the corruption of knowledge. So now we're talking about how can we identify it in today's society. So one major issue is that many students see learning as something that to finish instead of something to understand. For example, we can take a look at nowadays when students tend to use AI to finish their assignments without actually thinking. I mean, the work looks complete, but there is no real understanding there. And another issue is when knowledge is manipulated. For example, some group twist historical facts. We can take a look at the Palestine and Israel issue. So when the truth is replaced with control narrative, society becomes confused and misled. We also see exam-focused learning, where students will just memorize to pass and forget everything after the exam. So this makes knowledge shallow and disconnected from real life. And to support this, we can take a look at a few real life examples. So the first one is on social media. Many young people share some videos that so-called fatwas without checking if they are authentic. So this will misguide the young Muslim and spread confusion. And in education, we can see that students often focus more on grades and certificates than true learning, and this will lead them to copy assignments or memorize slides. And also, for example, we can take a look at COVID-19. So during COVID-19 pandemic, there are some misinformation and rumor about vaccine that spread quickly because people trusted rumors more than actual experts. So these examples show how easily the knowledge can be distorted from the truth, and it don't connect people with proper values. So to conclude, the corruption of knowledge is actually a serious issue because it affects how people learn and think. So when knowledge loses its ethical foundation, it becomes shallow and easily manipulated. So that's why we must have an approach knowledge responsibly, think critically, and also reconnect learning with moral and spiritual values. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Aiban bin Ahmad Tarmizi. My trade number 2412265, and I am going to talk about the real life problem that happens in IIU. In the vibrant halls of our esteemed institution, a silent crisis is unfolding. A crisis not of capability but of purpose. At IIUM, the pursuit of knowledge often prioritizes the material, high marks, stellar GPA, and technical mastery. This become the ultimate goals. We see students dedicating immense effort to mastering financial models, political system, and diagnostic procedure. But in this rigorous pursuit, what is often neglected? The very Islamic principle of social justice, community welfare that should fundamentally guide their practice. Knowledge then risks become a means to personal career advancement rather than act of worship and act of true service. This pursuit can lead to a darker path, cheating and plagiarism, acts that directly contradict to the adab, the inner integrity, so profoundly emphasized by Islamic scholarship. By prioritizing an external grade over internal ethical disciplines, we sacrifice the spiritual of knowledge for temporary, deceptive academic gains. This leads to fitnah, moral confusion, and undermining entire intellectual endeavor. The corruption of knowledge at IIUM is not merely an academic failure. It is a profound threat to the Ummah. By tolerating this dualism, its curriculum, and the erosion of adab among its students, the university risks graduating students that is technically competent but fundamentally morally compromised. Furthermore, our very structural environment often fosters a debilitating intellectual dualism. Students are taught that professional knowledge, a business model, a scientific method, and a legal code is value natural. While mandatory IIUM courses provide an Islamic ethical framework, this framework is largely represented as the primary foundation methodology within the IIUS. The corruption of knowledge at IIUM is not merely an academic failure. It is a profound threat to the Ummah. By tolerating this dualism, its curriculum, and the erosion of adab among its students, the university risks graduating students that is technically competent but fundamentally morally compromised. If our graduates cannot resolve this crisis of identity and purpose within themselves, they will simply reproduce secular system in Muslim lands, compromising the intellectual integrity and the very future direction of the global Muslim community. It is time to reclaim the holistic vision of knowledge, to integrate adab with intellect, and to fulfill the true promise of our institution.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Fiuddin. My metric number 2316935. Today, I will explain how the corruption of knowledge threatens IIM students specifically and Muslim in general. To begin, corruption of knowledge happens when we are no longer able to differentiate between true knowledge and distorted knowledge. According to Syed Muhammad Nakib Al-Atas, when this confusion spreads, people lose adab, meaning they no longer place knowledge, themselves and society in their proper place. So, even if someone is highly educated, they may still lack moral and spiritual direction. This risk is very relevant to us as IIM students. Many of us are exposed to Western theories and ideas in our countries, and that by itself is not wrong. The danger appears when these ideas are absorbed without an Islamic worldview. As Abu Hamid Abu Sulaiman pointed out, if students treat Islam just another subject to score and not as the foundation that guides every field of study, then education becomes only for career, status, or money, and not for fulfilling our purpose as servants of Allah. If this happens, students may graduate with excellent qualification but feel spiritually empty, confused about identity, or disconnected from Islamic ethics. So, corruption of knowledge does not always start with wrong information. Sometimes it begins when true knowledge is separate from its spiritual purpose. Now, if we look beyond IIUM, the danger extends to entire Muslim Ummah when corrupted knowledge spreads in universities, schools, and media. More Muslims begins to adopt secular and materialistic values without realizing it. As Al-Atas reminds us, a civilization collapses when the community can no longer recognize truth as truth and falsehood as falsehood. When that happens, society slowly moves away from Islamic identity and moral values. even if people still call themselves Muslim. So, in summary, corruption of knowledge is not just an academic problem. It affects our identity, our thinking, our values, our families, and the futures of the Muslim Ummah. Therefore, IIUM, as a model Islamic university, carries a huge responsibility. If we fail to address this issue, the threat will not remain inside the classroom. It will shape the next generation of leaders and professionals and eventually the direction of the Ummah. That's all for me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Abdul Matin bin Mat Idris. My matric number 2412509. So, for today, I would like to share a holistic solution that the International Islamic University Malaysia can adopt to help correct what scholars call the corruption of knowledge in the Muslim world. Now, this idea is inspired by two great thinkers, which are Sheikh Muhammad Naqib Al-Atas and Abdul Hamid Abu Sulaiman. First, Al-Atas. He tells us that the root of corruptions in knowledge is the loss of adab. Adab here means proper discipline of the mind, the soul, and society. Without adab, knowledge becomes fragmented, misapplied, and stripped of its ethical compass. The results: confusion and even the rise of false leadership. So, what can IIUM do? The university can embed adab into both its curriculum and governance. That means mentorship programs, ethic training modules, and academic priorities that focus not just on grades, but on the integral formation of character. In short, nurturing intellectual humility, moral responsibility, and respect for the hierarchy of knowledge. Second, Abu Sulaiman. He emphasized the Islamization of knowledge, and his vision is that modern sciences and humanities must be critically engaged, but always rooted in the principles of the Quran. He calls the contextual methodologies ways of thinking that address global challenges like governance, economic, and social justice, but through an Islamic lens. So, IIM can take this forward by setting up interdisciplinary research center, image scholars of Islamic thought working side by side with experts in economic, law, or environmental science. The outcome would be scholarship that is both authentic to our traditions and relevant to today's world. By combining Al-Atas calls for restoring adab with Abu Sulaiman's framework of Islamization, IIM can truly become a model university, a place that not only guards against intellectual corruption but also revives the Muslim world's contribution to global knowledge. And most importantly, the twin tribe approach ensures the knowledge is pursued with integrity, contextual relevance, and commitment to the moral and spiritual well-being of humanity. Thank you.